Can you guys hear me in there?
Yes.
Okay, you're live on YouTube.
Okay. Welcome you to Santaquin City Historic Preservation Commission meeting for October 8th, 2020. We welcome everyone here, and we hope to do some introductions, but I think we'll save that later when we have a few more people come in. We'll start out with an invocation and inspiration. Anybody wants to volunteer for that?
I'll go ahead and do that. Dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to be gathered tonight and to be considering and be thoughtful of our heritage, the history of this wonderful city of Santaquin. We pray that we might be guided and directed as we plan and evaluate and consider how we can best help preserve the history of Santaquin through its facilities. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay. So the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and read that. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You could go ahead and do introductions. We'll just so we don't have to come back.
Okay, well.
Those that are here, that's fine.
What's that?
Go ahead and do the introductions for those that are here. I
Okay.
think that would be appropriate.
My name is Ron Jones. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. And I won't go into my experience, but we have Jeremy here who wasn't with us last week. Jeremy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, any experience you have with history, historic preservation, anything?
Yeah, so Jeremy Combs, I've been a resident of Santaquin for going on 17 years now. So pretty good chunk of my life, nearly my entire married life with children. All four of our children have been raised here in Santaquin. We still have 3 at home. In terms of experience with historical preservation, when we're talking architecture around town, I don't have as much experience, but I am very, very much interested in history, kind of a bit of a history buff, especially when it comes to things like family history, preservation, things like that. And I'm a linguist by trade. And so when it comes to things like linguistic preservation and whatnot, it's something that I find interesting. I'm of the opinion that history is not necessarily what's in the books, it's what's around us. It's what we speak, it's what we see with the buildings and whatnot. And it's very much a shame to lose that history as time goes on. And that's really what has driven my interest in this particular committee and this effort is to preserve that history of the city that we just have all around us to enjoy and to learn from. So.
You've had considerable experience with photographs as well, right?
Yeah, so as part of just kind of the family history thing, I've gotten a lot into archival, in particular, so photo archival, even restoration, things like that. And yeah, I do enjoy that quite a bit as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yep, Emily Waters.
Emily,
Oh, hi.
you want to introduce yourself? What your position is?
I am the Recreation Administrative Assistant, and
Just
so
flip that
I
around.
come to a whole bunch of meetings and I will type up the minutes. And it's fun to listen to everything.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily. And we appreciate her doing that and getting everything up. And by law, our board has to submit agendas and minutes on the state website as well as our city ones. And so Emily takes care of that and also helps get word out to our board members. So my name is John Bradley. I'm the Community Services Director. And what that entails in Santaquin is our recreation, special events, library, museum, and senior center. And so I get to work with some of our older facilities and even our older population. And so it's a great connection to be able to be part of historic preservation and to see, I know we've got several buildings that fall into that category that are city owned that I get to work with each week. So thank you.
Damon, introduce yourself.
Sure. Relatively new. Santaquin is the president. Relatively new, Santaquin resident, and 3 years. Worked at BYU. I have great interest in preserving historic sites. My wife and I serve the mission. I would spend every day of our lives in historic sites. 50,000 people here. So I think it's incredible. We have these facilities or these sites that tell an important part of the history of this community. So that's why I'm glad to hang out here. Maybe I can contribute something worthwhile.
Thank you.
You even written a book. Did you?
Yeah, it's about ready to be submitted. Johnson Home, 1828 Johnson Home.
You missed Jeremy couldn't introduce himself. He's been here in Santa Cruz for quite some time. His expertise, he's a linguist. How many languages do you speak?
I speak 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but I work with a company that deals with about 150.
Wow.
You ever need anything translated?
That's what we do.
And he enjoys working with family history, recordings, photographs. And our guest today is Elena Franco. She's with the State Historic Preservation Office. We invited her here today. She's going to give us some training on our roles here with the Preservation Commission and what all we need to do to become a certified local government and help us understand a little more our goals and what we should do. You can tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here today. I'm Alina Franco. I'm from the Utah State Historic Preservation Office, and I manage the CLG program. So we're excited for Santaquin to join us because right now Utah has 98 CLGs, and you are about to become the 99th.
Explain CLG.
CLG is a certified local government.
Should we wait so that we're number 100 or?
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
It's between you and Magna right
Oh.
now. Okay, so whichever, it looks like you guys are going to be 99 and Magna's going to be 100. So
Okay, that's pretty
sorry
cool.
about that. Okay. Yeah, but we receive funding from the National Park Service every year, and as required part of that funding, we are supposed to pass through it to local governments throughout the state, then do historic preservation activities and stuff. So these grants are available every year, and I let you guys know, when they're available. I help you process and get you all started. So in order to become a CLG, I think you guys are pretty much there. You have to pass the preservation ordinance, which you already have. You need to appoint a historic preservation commission, which you have, and stuff. So all you need to do is just send me your paperwork, which is easy. You send me the preservation ordinance. You send me the resumes of people on the board. And I can send you this later in an email.
Resumes.
Yeah, resumes, or it could even be a piece of paper with just your name, your contact information, and just what your interest is in preservation. Pretty simple. Not too picky about that. And then your mayor will have to sign a certification agreement. It's a 1-pager just saying, we support the board and the goals and the things you do. And I'll send that. I sent it before, but I don't know if it's gone. I'll send it to you.
Okay. So ordinance.
Yes, ordinance, resumes, and then just the certification agreement from the mayor.
mayor.
But I will send you this in email tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. I thought it was Friday for a minute. Yeah, so that's pretty simple. Then once you send it to me, I package it all pretty and I send it to the Park Service. They are the head honchos and they will give the final approval. And once they do, you can start applying for grants. Grants they become available in January, so I'll send that out to you. I also send out regular just updates about the program, other funding, or history opportunities. So if you want to be on that email blast, you get annoying emails from me all the time, just let me know.
I was good enough.
Okay. Yeah, so the grants are available in January. I will announce them in March, and these are non-competitive grants. So if you apply and it's an eligible project, you will get it. Stuff. And then you have 16 months to complete it. It usually spans 2 of your fiscal years. So that helps you be flexible with your budget. And then, once it's finished, you send us the final product. and your financial statement showing, you paid and yada, yada, and then we approve it, and then I pay you guys out. As soon as it's done.
Alina, one thing that might help is if you send it directly to me,
Perfect.
it might be best, and then I can forward it to the entire committee. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah.
Even your newsletters. That way, just as they come to me, and then if everyone's okay with that, we'll just make sure either myself or Emily will just forward those out.
And if members change.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's-
Or would you guys prefer to rather just be on an email list?
Just whatever.
Or in the meeting's fine. Organizing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so there's several different projects you can do with the grant. I know you guys you want to do the survey first off, and that's good. First thing we recommend is doing a survey.
Should that be our first thing?
Yes. And stuff, just to identify the inventory of your buildings, which, we've talked about previously, and just to figure out what you have, where is it located? It's useful for you. It's also useful for your planning department. So when UDOT comes through and they want to build 5 new roads, you can be like, oh, you're going straight through our historic core. So it's a good planning tool to also have. And stuff. So we have a list of consultants that I can give you that who do surveys, this kind of stuff all the time. They're individuals and companies throughout the state. I have RFPs that you can look at from other cities who have done this, so it should be pretty easy for you guys to tailor it to your own needs. We do have the survey guy in our office. His name's Corey Jensen. He will be looking at the product. He can guide you about what to look for, help you narrow things down. He can help you look at the language of your RFP. So he can be a good resource for you, and I can get you in contact. Yeah. Any questions, or can I answer any questions? I'm happy to help you guys throughout the process. No big deal. It may be intimidating, as it would be your first time, but it's actually pretty simple. It's not that hard.
I've got one question.
Yes.
So someone that has approached me between our last meeting and this meeting is our local DUP. There's a little cabin that was saved and is over by the library that could be part of our survey. But one of the questions they asked, is there funding that, does it have to be a city facility to receive funding? Or we can receive money as a organization to help individual homeowners in town or organizations?
So the grant will always go through the city, always, but you can funnel it out to individual property owners. So Draper does that all the time. They use their grant. They send out notifications to just people throughout the city, and they say, hey, do you have a building that's on the register? Are you fixing it up? Apply to us and we will apply for money for you. So right now they're working on, or there's 3 different houses that are, re-roofing or redoing their HVAC or redoing the windows. And that's all funded and paid for by the property owners. And the city is just managing the project to make sure they're, following our financial guidelines and they're keeping to the standards. But yes, it can be private or public, doesn't matter.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions about the first, you said the survey, we're going to inventory what we have. You're talking about buildings only or content?
They'll be buildings only. So they're not going to go into buildings. It will basically be like a windshield survey. So the person's probably going to be driving down the street, taking photos, documenting like the age of the house, or just saying what kind of style is it. And they'll go through that, house by house, block by block.
My second question is, based on your experience, do you have any kind of general tips or advice that as we're getting going, we might kind of attend to?
I think it's good for you guys to identify what goals you have. And I think your biggest goal is to, do a survey and figure out what you have. So once you hit that goal, we recommend doing National Register nominations after that. And what that is just putting them on a fancy federal list. That is an honorific designation only. So the feds have no say about what you do to that property once it's on the list. We have no say what you do to that property unless you're asking for financial aid from the federal government or from us. Then we would have a say in your property. But
What did you call that?
it's the National Register nomination. And so there's thousands of properties in the state that are listed on there. And again, it's just a federal list of honorific designation. I think even the Salt Lake Temple's on there. It's just a list of buildings that are important to American history at the state, federal and local level.
And being on that list then allows them to potentially receive federal funding
Yes.
or kind of a designation of future protection. Not that it's guaranteed, but it helps to say, hey, it's
Yeah.
on the National Register.
Yes, so there's a lot of benefits, there's this preservation effect where, once it's on there, it helps boost property values in a lot of areas. And then also, when you're on the register, you can apply for grants, to do rehab. There's also the historic tax credits that the state has, and there's also historic tax credits on the federal level. So if it's a commercial or residential building, you could always get some financial aid once it's listed. And then, yes, once it's listed, if the city decides to pass an ordinance for design review or some kind of protection, that's up to you. You do not control that, then yeah, it could, merit some protection in the future.
Maybe you could even give us a little understanding of what happens when a building is on the National Historic Register, because I think there's some misunderstandings. Some people will think once it's on there, it can never be torn down. You can be the owner of it, but you can't tear it down.
Yeah, and so once a building is listed, you could go out the next day and tear it down and we could do nothing about it. There's no ramifications for it because again, it is, that person's private property. And stuff. So on there, it doesn't hurt your property rights at all. All it does is opens up avenues for you for financial incentives. Again, you can change it, you can do whatever you want. We will never come in and tell you you can't do that unless you have a local ordinance, stating otherwise. But we do not push that at the state level because we've seen problems in, let's say, Park City or in the avenues in Salt Lake where, they do have a local ordinance and design review and it causes them just tensions, between the community and the city. But again, that's up to you. We do not get involved, whatever you guys want to do.
So
Go ahead.
kind of along those lines, I understand that one of the main criteria for if it is still historic is what has happened to the facade, right? The outside of the building is really kind of the most important part. Do these grants and whatnot, are they really only applicable to what's done superficially, or like how far even that's the building, so to speak? Does that make sense?
So once a building's listed and you apply for a grant, basically anything on the building. It could be walls, windows, doors, foundation, roof, HVAC, plumbing,
Exterior.
electrical. It could be exterior, interior, it doesn't matter. You could use it for anything.
Oh,
stuff
But-
like that.
But your exterior is what has to be preserved historically, right? The appearance.
In order to be on the register, we take into account both the interior and the exterior. But when I say interior, I don't mean like that kitchen is not the original kitchen because kitchen and bathrooms are the first things to be upgraded in the house. It's basically about, did you blow out all the walls? And so it's like an open plan thing, but it's like cumulative effect. So it's the inside and the outside are taken into effect, but mostly outside. Because that's what people will be seeing.
And that's what the survey is gonna really, they're gonna be seeing the outside initially.
Yeah.
Do they knock on the door and talk to the homeowners and ask questions, or?
No, unless I guess you want them to, but they probably won't do that. They'll probably have a bunch of people coming out and asking, why are you taking photos of my house and stuff? Because that happens to us all the time. But usually the consultant, they'll do the survey, they'll do a big report and stuff talking about the different kinds of buildings, the historic periods they date to, the styles. Usually they do presentations for you guys and for the community and stuff. And that's something you can definitely put into an RFP and the contract.
Would board members be invited potentially to go along as they're doing the survey? Let's say we've got one member that's not here that apparently I understand that she knows every single home in town.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But that might be an area where she might be able to help by saying, oh, I know that home was built in the 20s or this. So that might be an area that as needed or as wanted that maybe the rec board could help out. Obviously they're just giving assistance. They're not writing the report or anything.
Well, yeah, and they can definitely help, guide the consultant, because consultant does not know Santaquin, unless they live here and stuff. So I can't speak for whoever you hire, but I'm sure that won't be a problem. They're usually pretty nice consultants, hopefully.
We could put that as part of the RFP
Yeah,
that
put
it's
that in there.
required
Required.
that the board members have the ability, if desired, to. I mean, we're going to be able to tell them as a board right? Or you as individuals. I'm fairly new, but this is the core of town. This is the area, or maybe there's some little pockets
Right,
that have
right.
on the outside of town that have some older homes or businesses or barns or.
You know, and too, I assume when we've got building is going through some type of remodel, much like we were talking about with the school or museum. There's certain materials that should be used and certain materials that are used probably disqualify it. Is that correct?
Well, to be honest, there are a bunch of houses in Santaquin that have, you know, new up-to-date materials, you know, whether it's, you know, a new roof or solar panels or just vinyl siding, you know, and that's okay. Because if you look at the buildings as a whole, we'll probably have enough historic integrity that the whole lot of them could be listed, even if you have individual buildings that probably aren't so historic looking or have that much historic materials. There's still an umbrella effect because you're trying to encompass all of Santaquin. So it's evolution throughout, you know, history. So I don't think it'll be a
I
problem
guess I'm thinking specifically this
of the school.
museum, you know, re-roofing it.
Yeah.
And I assume we're going with an asphalt shingle.
Yeah, and I've got some stuff to talk about a little bit later. Yeah.
That
You know,
that should be fine.
And so I know I met with one couple that live in an older historic house in town. But I understand it was disqualified because it changed so much on the exterior.
Oh, really? Okay. With the Santaquin school, I think if you do asphalt shingles, it's not gonna disqualify it from being on the register. It could probably be on there just by itself, you know, because of its historic significance. I mean, that's fine. There's a ton of National Register listed buildings with asphalt roofs. So
You know, and much of the asphalt now with the heavy shape, it kind of looks like an old wood shingle.
Yeah.
Building was.
Yeah. and stuff. There would have to be like dramatic changes.
You're
to
gonna
the
make
front.
it bright red, right? Right, Eddie, you're Tom?
Neon red.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know. Well, that's something we can decide.
No. We'll do something that fits in with the building.
Yeah, that should be fine. That won't take away from the historic integrity of that building.
Yes, okay. Well, we've kind of interrupted. Is there more to what you want to explain to us? More on your list?
Let's see, I can tell you about the other projects you can do. You know, once you do the survey, what other projects you can do with the grant. And we have communities who apply for this grant, you know, every year and stuff. So I have Gunnison who applies every single time to fix up their casino Star Theater. I don't know if you guys know that building on
Yeah,
Main Street.
On Main Street.
Yeah, with the angels and the facade. Yeah, so they've been funding that thing, I think, for the past 15 years.
Just
So
put a
they
little
just-
bit in each year.
Yeah, every year they're like, okay, we're working on the roof. Okay, we're working on the windows, and they just every year they just do it and stuff. But yeah, so you can do a survey. That's one project you can do. You can do National Register nominations. So, you know, once you do the survey, your next project should be getting all of those listed. And again, that's just hiring a consultant, you know, to fill out the form because it's very technical and specific form. Like you will need someone professional in order to write that form. Yeah, surveys.
Is that somebody you can direct us to?
Sometimes it's the same consultant you use for the surveys because they're used to doing both surveys, nominations. It's kind of a whole package deal. Yep, surveys, nominations, and then you can do rehabilitation on buildings that are listed. You know, that's kind of the whole process. Survey, listed, and then you could do rehab work. You can also do public education activities. So if you want to do a walking tour, if you want to create like a mobile app or something that could be funded. If you want to do some kind of workshop, so if you want to hire somebody to come and present on cemetery preservation or how to do windows correctly, or, you know, weather stripping, that could also be funded. If you guys want to travel to, you know, a conference, preservation conference, whether that's state or, you know, nationwide, we can help fund that. That's an eligible activity.
Are they different grants? So maybe you could
It's
do
the same
a
grant.
travel one or just one grant?
One grant.
Up
that you
to
can do-
10,000 a year as long as you match it.
And you can do multiple projects within that 1 year. So I have some CLGs who are experts at this because they've done it so long, but who have like 4 projects that they're doing with the same grant. You know, so they could be working on one house while doing a study, while doing like a pamphlet or something. So whatever, I don't want you guys to run faster than you can walk, and stuff. So, but it's very flexible. Like we will fit it to meet your goals and stuff. And midway through the grant, if you're like, we can't do this anymore, or we want to switch to a different project, we can do that.
So one option could be, hey, we've got 10,000, we could put X amount toward the museum to work on the HVAC system and some toward private homes and some toward an education, all in the same grant.
Yes.
We could
Did you say the grants are generally about 10,000?
up
Yes, so
to.
that's-
Do we have to have an estimate of what the project's going to cost to get the grant?
You can just give me a rough estimate. So if you're thinking, I'm gonna spend $4,000 on this one project, you can put that in there. I do not need specific numbers down to the dime, because we understand these are flexible and they will change and stuff. So you can just apply for the bulk 10, even if you're like, we don't have specific, estimates right now, that's okay. We're flexible, it's all right.
Just 10 the maximum.
10 is the maximum.
I understand you said you had 2 years to complete the project.
Yeah, so it's 16 months. So, a year and a half, it runs from April April to the following August. So kids this year started in April and they will finish next year in August 2021. So about 16.
Can you go for 10 in 2021 and 10 in 2022 and do a $20,000 project?
Well, unfortunately, you can't have two grants at once. So since these grants come out every year
Oh,
and
you
the
have to
grant
spend
cycle
them
is
before
a
you
year
get
and a
them.
half. Yeah, so if people are on like an odd or even year cycle. So people who applied in 2020, they can apply again in 22 when they're done in 21 with their project. I know it sounds confusing, so I apologize.
So we can only apply every other year?
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes, people cancel. I've had many cities cancel just this year because of COVID reasons. So usually when that happens, I put out another call again and say, hey, money's available, apply, and then, so. Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess the other thing I'm just curious about is we do a survey. What do we usually get? Do we get a booklet, a map,
Yes.
or what does the city have to show with these properties?
So the consultant will give you a report, which is going through and talking about the history of Santaquin, the architectural styles, the periods, and how each houses break down into that. They will give you a list of all of the houses they surveyed, and whether they're eligible or, historic, or whether they're not. For example, that Macy's over there is not historic, I can tell you that right now. So, it's tough. But they'll provide you a list of that. You will also get a map. What else? Yeah, and again, they'll do presentations to the
They
board.
take photographs, right?
Photographs, so they will give you all of that. All of the photographs, all of the information they will give you, they give to us. So it'll be like a mirror record. Stuff. And then, the presentations to you guys, they can do as many presentations to the public as you want, and stuff. And then we can even come to those meetings if you want. Yeah, that's about it.
The other kind of comment I've heard in the past, some people seem to think only good-looking buildings are on the register. Tell us, is that a reason, or is it buildings falling into disrepair? Is it still eligible?
Yes, so if there is a building that's vacant or just a little bit run down, that doesn't mean that it's not eligible. It probably means it's more eligible because it hasn't been messed with or upgraded, so it probably has more historic integrity, or just the majority of its historic materials remaining. So that's not a problem. You can have, because right now, any building that's 50 years old is considered historic, so anything pre-1970 is historic. Any of those buildings can qualify for being historic. Now, if you were to try to nominate them individually, I don't know if it would go through and stuff, and that's why we recommend doing a bulk nomination. So once the survey is over, we will probably recommend that you guys make a district, which is just an umbrella document for large portions of Santaquin that can encompass as many buildings as possible in there. So they could be, eligible for tax credits or for grants and stuff. But no, not all the prettiest buildings, you know, that doesn't mean they're not historic. There's a lot of buildings throughout the state that are, you know, that we would consider ugly, or just, you know, a small little bungalow that are perfectly historic.
About
And
a
that's fine.
factory or
Yeah, factories count, churches count, you know, old weird farm buildings in the middle of nowhere count. So structures, anything counts. Yeah.
What do they do as far as, I've seen little plaques or little signs.
Mhm.
Is there generic ones that you buy or you create your own that then you can put on a house, or what's that follow up once they've been selected or the nomination's been approved?
Yeah, so once the nomination's approved, property owners or anyone really can apply to get like a plaque on the outside of their
Yeah,
house.
that's what I was.
We have that, but there's also other companies throughout the state who make plaques and stuff. And that's, it's usually, you know, it has the house name, the date, and like a little,
And they can purchase that and then just install it.
Yeah.
As more of a kind of an educational pride thing. Hey, this
Yeah.
is our home meets this criteria, or
yeah,
Okay.
and stuff. So that usually we have like a bunch of property owners, you know, apply for that. Or we, you know, say, hey, go to these companies and they can also make you a plaque. And that's pretty, I can't remember, I think it's about 500 to 600 depending on what size of plaque you want, or maybe even less.
Okay.
Not sure.
okay, thank you.
Is it possible that we already have a building in town that's been listed on the National Register? I'm thinking like the library, for example, or.
We have one.
We have one, and unfortunately it's planned to be demolished because it's the old city hall and we're building a new city hall. And so as part of that process, that's the only one that we're aware of right now but the museum that is not going to be demolished and the library probably need to be added to. I just don't think we've gone through the process. So there's others that we can add, but that's kind of the irony of this one that's on the list, is the building is really in rough shape and needs to go down based on you're building a new city. Yeah, they're building a new city hall and it's going to be, it needs to go.
You know, and I know that's not something you'd like to hear on your time, but does a building like that need to be delisted?
No.
Or just, okay.
But we'll take care of that on our end. So, you know, once it's gone, we'll know, or you just let me know. And then we just send a notice to the Park Service saying, take it off.
Is there anything you encourage to be done before it's gone? Like I said, I was on a commission forum. We got involved a few times with some buildings that were going to be demolished. We just got in and took some histories on the building, photographed it, drew up some plans of it. Just tried to
Yeah,
put
to try to
together
have a record.
memory of it. Just
Yeah.
Say that, you know, maybe put a plaque on a post out there. You know, this is what the site where this old building used to be.
Yeah, you know, we leave that up to you. Again, we don't tell you what to do, but yeah, there's a lot of other CLGs who, you know, when a building's being demolished, they'll go in, they'll take photos. They'll usually get an intern or something to write up a house history and stuff, and they have it in their records and stuff like that. Or, you know, make drawings. You know, we've also done that before. So whatever you guys feel comfortable
Get
doing.
histories from people who attended there.
Yeah, you can get oral histories about it. And I'm sure we could bug our architect to come down and do a drawing or something about it if you want.
Probably have one
And-
here that.
And not to speak for city council, but I think the direction that we've been given as staff has been, they do want to preserve historical facilities in town. They just have limits on resources. And so the old senior center and that's one part of the building, and then the old city hall are just two that they've chosen, that we don't have the resources to continue to keep those up, but we do have the library, we do have the DUP building next to it, you still have the museum, and now we're developing this effort as a city to preserve other areas. So I just wanted to mention that our goal is not to
No.
start out by taking out the one in town that has it, but ultimately they have to kind of pick and choose what resources can they continue to give toward buildings. And everyone's been moved out of there. That one is more of a health problem, as far as it's one of many problems, right? But anyway.
Well, I think it's better to lose something and save the majority of the rest, you know, than try to save every single building. You know, that just makes no sense. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
Is there anything a group like this can do or should do about historic sites in town that don't still exist? You know, like where the museum is, my understanding, that's the block where the first Santaquin fort was built. And there's nothing left of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wish, I'd love to see some, I don't know if there's drawings or anything of it, you know, pictures, and doubt the pictures, but you know, there's quite a history with that, you know, to the founding of the community.
Yeah, I mean, there's CLGs who do their own kind of like house tours or something every year. So Cottonwood Heights, they have like this house tour they do every year. So they ask, 4 or 5 property owners to, to open their house for people to walk through, or even they just create a walking tour, so it could be like a summer event saying, hey, let's do a scavenger hunt where you need to find like this is specific historic window, and it'll be among this block and go, so there's CLGs who do those kind of projects all the time just to get people interested, to get them to, to look at the buildings within their town and, to make activities out of that. So that's definitely something you can do. If you want, I can give you contact information for these CLGs who are doing these projects. So, you can always talk with them and say, what kind of pointers do you have? Some people, I know Pleasant Grove has their strawberry days, and they usually do a big thing like a festival where all the proceeds go towards their CLG funds and stuff. So there's a lot of things you can do. It just depends on what you guys are comfortable doing, what bandwidth do you have, what your community, wants to see, because I don't know what kind of celebrations you have down here. I'm sure they're fun.
When there's no COVID-19.
Yeah, that's true. But like a walking tour could be
Sure.
COVID safe, or just a self-guided walking tour, making a pamphlet, something like that.
It's a great
So
idea.
As,
Yeah.
as we look at doing the property survey,
Mhm.
well, and one of the things you mentioned, taking photographs and potentially some homeowners wondering why their home is being photographed.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe in the monthly newsletter, we need to say something to the effect of what we're planning and just to alleviate some fears. And I'm wondering if you have any sort of materials that we could share with the community in terms of this is what it means for you that this is happening. It doesn't mean that we're going to shut down your house. You can't do anything with it anymore. It's really just actually making available potential funds for the city and for individual homeowners, whatever. Just something like that because I could see how this would create some fear if
Yes.
people didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, so I can send you guys just like a pamphlet or like a 1-letter thing about, this is what a survey is, or this is what the National Register nomination is, and like an FAQ kind of a thing. So I can send that to you. That's not a problem. And stuff. And again, like when you have public meetings, if you want to, as I'm sure you will, we're more than happy to come and help alleviate those fears. We do it all the time. Yeah.
I
that's-
assume we'll be in contact with you.
Yeah, and stuff, and I'm happy to bring down the rest of our staff. We have an architect, we have the guy who's in charge of the National Register process, so I'm happy to drag them down here. No problem. Any other?
So what would be that first next step then for us? The RFP?
First step is send me your paperwork,
Okay.
that stuff, so I can send it to the Park Service, because I can't give you guys the grant until they say okay.
Sorry. I knew his brother, and I keep calling him by his
John,
brother's name.
yes.
It's John.
Yep. I can take the lead on getting paperwork to you.
So I'll send you guys, tomorrow I'll follow up with an email saying,
Perfect.
okay, first send this to me. And then once you send that to me and the Park Service gives their blessing, we can talk about grants and we can start planning for that.
You said there was a paper though that the mayor
Yes.
needed to
And
sign.
and the mayor comes every Friday and has
Oh,
a
perfect.
brief meeting and can sign documents. So I can
So
get
is that
something.
You can send to.
Yes, I will
Good
send
job.
you that tomorrow morning. It's a 1-pager.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
Perfect.
And stuff. So yeah, once you send that stuff to me, Park Service says you guys are good to go, we can start planning for the grant that comes out in January. I can send you guys RFPs, whenever you want, you can start looking through that. We can help you start narrowing down of what you want to look at. I suggest talking to your planning department and looking at specifically what blocks you want to survey. and stuff. And that's also gonna depend on your budget, which I know probably won't be solidified to next year, but if you can think of an estimate, like we might have $5,000.
I think a few of us could sit around a map like that.
Yeah.
We could draw a circle. This
Yeah.
is the area.
Perfect, yeah, just do that, see like roughly how many, and then you can kind of estimate, like, it's gonna be 20 to 30 bucks per building, so if you
Okay.
want to survey 200, just do the math, and stuff, and, feel free to, contact me, happy to help walk you through that process.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
I get paid the big government bucks to do this kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, very good, appreciate it. Anyone else have
Yeah,
a question for her? Anything else you want to say to us?
Well, no, we're happy you guys are finally coming, because I think we talked about this last year about coming to CLG, or
Yes,
Roger and Steve, I think, came down here when they were looking at the museum
right.
and stuff. So we're happy to get you guys into CLG and stuff, because we want to help you guys preserve, your buildings, preserve your local heritage and stuff. So we're happy to join. I'm sorry you can't be 100, but 99 is.
Yeah, 99 is pretty good.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay, well, I think that's the main part. We've now, John, we want to talk about the museum roof.
Yeah. So again, I think by city council choosing to put the new city hall on that block, we have most of a block. I would say 3/4 of a block. You're going to see a lot of improvements over time, just with the building of the new building, and eventually, I would assume outside, park improvements, things like that. But also, I think the intention is that City Hall on the left side and the museum on the right side are bookends to that block, kind of a welcome to Santaquin. They've talked about wayfinding signs, where you put them on Main Street and say, go in a block, this is where City Hall is and the museum and whatnot. Yeah, and the library. So they talked about that again, where it's not right on Main Street, is getting people from Main Street to know where those are. So there's a lot of focus that's going to, especially going forward, be at that block, and the museum's part of that, which is exciting. So 2 things that we have been working on specifically in a separate board, which is the museum board, related to what's that first step, because the building was built in 1903 and has a lot of needs. It's a fabulous building, but has a lot of needs. And so the things that the board has been, and staff have been really working on, is if we could do 2 things to start out that renovation, what would it be? And so one of them was, and I apologize, that light keeps blinking over there like 50 times, just beep, beep, beep. We're gonna have to work on that. Is basically up on the roof, up in the roof, there is a significant bat problem and guano that's been stacked for many years. So we understand 2 things. 1, we need to get rid of the bats, and 2, we need to redo the roof. Like those.
Get rid of the guano too.
Right, and the guano, that's part of it. So we actually had multiple people contacted. One that came out, they were just head over. I mean, they just really went above and beyond in their inspection. So we've already actually talked to 2 different companies, and the one has a really good resume on all the projects they've done. The estimate there is closer to $50,000 to literally go in and completely remove all the guano. And they actually do that before you do the roof work. So they'll go in there and they're going to completely remove that. They actually chink a lot of the spaces the bats would get in on more on the bottom side. And then the next step is then actually, you almost think it was backwards, but then they actually come in and do the roof after that, is my understanding. And I hope I'm not speaking wrong. Annette from the museum could not make it tonight.
My
But
understanding, bats are really only a problem during the migration time.
and there's certain times that you're allowed to actually get rid of them.
But they're on their way to Mexico, and so we're just kind of stopped by here in about October. Waited a couple of months, they'll be gone, but we gotta have it all all closed up before they come back.
Yeah, so more than just wiring up a garage, your front of your garage so that bats don't get in. Yeah, we literally need to not only seal that off, but they go in there and they have a really deep cleaning process. Now, from the operations of the museum, that means that we need to move stuff because some of the ceilings falling down and stuff above that. And so we're going to actually have to go in there, and this is going to have to be a concerted coordination on moving stuff, securing it somewhere safe, and then doing the bat stuff and then doing the roof. So it's going to be a process, but we really feel like those two steps are the first. Then later on, you can really work on foundation, and we can work on HVAC and lighting and all those different things. I'll just briefly hit a couple highlights on the roofing. And what I'll do is I'll scan these and send them out with you guys with the minutes so that you can look at them as well. I've got one copy here for our architect.
You know, the roof, I'm glad you're doing the roof, kind of one of the first steps. I assume it's not in very good shape. And
Correct.
it has a lot of leaks, and it's just important to get a good lid on top.
So one of the companies that really spent the most time with us is called Clean Cut Roofing, based out of Mount Pleasant. But they gave us, there's a list, I won't read them all, but there's 24 items that are included with what they're recommending. And they have different types of gauges of the different type of shingles and so forth, including warranty. And that goes up the different categories up to about 100,000. So our initial thought was, for about 150,000, we're going to get rid of the bats. We're going to replace the roof. One of the things that we talked about doing is replacing the soffit and fascia. Am I saying that correct? And they're actually recommending aluminum versus wood because the wood is just apparently so expensive to literally go in there. You can do aluminum and it still looks pretty traditional, but it's not quite.
I think what you have there too in the wood is really deteriorating.
Yeah.
and separating.
And that was about 33,000, just that part. So you're looking at 150 to probably $200,000. Now that's a lot of money, and it's obviously not something that's in the current budget. However, with this new city hall, they have kind of a range of funds that's been approved for that project on that block. If there's funds that are available left over, we might, once they do that and they tear down some of the old buildings, if there's money available at the end, I think that one option is to take some of that money and work on the museum because you don't want to be building a new city hall and have bats still there that are coming over into the new building and et cetera. I think the goal is let's take care of it all at once type of thing. So that's a positive thing that we might be able to have access to that money. I'm not saying that it's for sure, but if there's money left over at the end, that's a possibility.
You're thinking that this is like a project next spring?
I don't know. We'll have to talk with administration when it comes to, because they've got to demo those houses first, then build new. And so I don't know if that comes
So this
simultaneously or if it comes when they start to demo the old buildings. I'm not sure. So we'll have to talk with administration about that. But so there's been a lot of work done. There's also a couple, I'll just briefly mention a couple site visits. I've got an engineering report here from Crossroads Engineering in 2018 by Garth Haslam. 2018. Yep, by Crossroads Engineering. And then we had a bigger report by Steve Cornell, a historical architect from the Utah Division of State History. Is that your department?
Yep, that's all right.
Okay. And Steve came down, and I think he's actually come down several times, as well as, is it Don Hartley?
Yep.
Multiple people from the state have been great to come down and walk through and say, hey, this is a pretty neat building, but yeah, there's work to do.
Mhm.
And I've got, again, 2 or 3 different pages of recommendations on what they recommend we do. But work's being done, but that would be something that would definitely benefit from this grant funding, even if it wasn't all the money each year, but a portion of it going toward that museum building. Again, you could tackle one thing at a time. One thing that the city is doing this year is they're putting $3,000 towards replacing light fixtures, not electrical, but the fixtures. We had so many fixtures that were going out and they couldn't find parts anymore that we budgeted $3,000, and the downstairs has actually been done, and they're LED light fixtures. So it looks much brighter. We still need to do the upstairs, but that is one thing that the city is focused on this year, is just trying to make sure we have enough lighting so that we can still continue to do tours. But down the road, the building is actually closed most of the winter just because there's no heat, water's turned off, the boiler system's down. I mean, there's a lot of things like that systematically imagine as you get the roof done and you get rid of the bats, and then you start tackling a couple of those things that you really make it a nice kind of refreshing it. So
Is the mitigation of the bats, is that something that can happen separate from getting the new roof? Obviously, you don't want away from bats if you don't before you get the new roof, but is it possible to get rid of the bats and then a year later do the roof?
So that's a great question. One action item I'll have you put in the minutes, Emily, is for just to remind me to follow up, is I do need to talk with administration. So they're in the design process of City Hall right now. Is when can these things happen? Can they happen simultaneously? Do we need to wait? Because if we start the bat process, we need to have that money up front.
If you start that process, you've got to do the roof immediately after.
So that would,
Because if you wait, those bats, they can get into a 1/4 inch gap. And they'll be right back.
okay, so that's a good point. So as we're talking timetable on the overall project, so again, they're talking about doing drawings right now, and then eventually the construction that could take 18 to 24 months. Could this stuff be happening with different companies simultaneously? It could. I don't know if,
Have to wait for the City Hall project.
I don't know. So again, it all is part of that funding, and I know it all comes down to what the design ends up being, because the design ends up determining how much money we need to spend, and then they need to determine how much they need to save to demo the old building, and then how much it's going to cost to demo the 2 houses that they purchased on the corner. So all of it is all part of that budget process. The other thing that the city is really looking into is federal stimulus potential. If something does happen at a federal level, this would be considered a shovel-ready project that we could really apply for some grant funds to maximize all the other things that we're doing on that block. And so that we're kind of watching and waiting to see on a federal level if something happens from the federal stimulus side, above and beyond the CARES, so.
I would think the removal of the bats and the free roof is ready. I mean, that's something
Yeah. And again, we,
started on right away.
and I want your feedback on this, and we'll send this out so you guys can as well. But really the next step is we've got this from, an outside contractor. Now we look at it with engineering eyes and determine is all the type of stuff that really needs to be done on the roof being included in that. If not, we add it to it. But yeah, I think we've got a kind of a plan, and that's the first step, right? For that building.
Yeah, good, that's good. Good that some steps are being taken. Care of that, preserve that.
It's just such a large price tag. It's hard to swallow that all at once. But if it's included in the $7 million City Hall project, I think there might be a chance because it's part of a larger one versus just coming up with that money in a regular budget year. So.
Okay. Well,
Any other questions on museum?
I had just one,
Yeah,
not
go
actually
ahead.
on the museum per se, but just as we were talking about the grants and things like that, like, does the city have a kind of a general earmark that goes towards upkeep of like the library or the museum, just year to year on average? And how big of an impact will a $10,000 grant have on that budget, so to speak?
So that's a great question. So each facility or area of operation has its own operations budget, the library, the museum, and so forth. The library is open full-time, and so they have a full-time director, and then they have part-time staff and so forth. The museum is not open full-time, and so we only have part-time staff. So the amount of operations money is less directed there, but the grant would be money that would help us do things that we normally don't have budgeted with operations. So it would be above and beyond what's already being done. The city will continue to and I would assume down the road that the city would want to, let's say you fix up that museum and now you can open it full time. There could be more resources put toward it at that point if the council so choose to do so.
you bring up a good point, Jeremy, because in my work, I see it. There's some people who seem to think, get the money, we build the building, it's built, it's forever. And it is not. About 20 to 30 years, you need to put a new roof on it.
Yep.
Windows get to a point where they need to be replaced. And I hope that city somehow budgets for these major retrofits have to happen.
Yep. So again, anytime the city commits to large projects like that, that's definitely a thought. And that's, I think in the past, why large amounts of money have not been put toward, there hasn't been money to back up. And that's why they're saying we can't keep all of these buildings because we can't continue to upkeep all of them, especially if we're not using them. So if the city focuses on this one and the excuse me, that blocks my screen. Then I think we're saying, hey, if we're committed to spending $200,000 with bats and a roof, I think we're committed to improving the operations budget, right? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Does anyone have anything else we need to discuss? With that, I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second. Seconded that we adjourn this meeting. As far as when we meet again, and we talk about every 2 months. 2 months from now puts us in December. December's usually a busy month.
Yeah, so once this committee gets up and going, there's not going to be a need to meet monthly. I don't know if with the stuff that we're moving on, if there's a desire to meet in November, just because we've got some things up front to go ahead and do. I'm open to do that, and then maybe you skip December with the holidays and then maybe meet again in January. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking though, there's some things we have to keep going. Get these papers into the state to become a COG. And then if we could get the list of contractors to survey properties, we put out an RFP. We need to have the whole group together to review the RFP. How's the best way to do that?
No?
But I think we could send out that RFP and then maybe we get the group together, I don't know, first of January or sometime to review those proposals.
That'd be fine as well. Yeah, if you want to wait till January and get together and say this is where we're at. Again, internally from the city side, we can take care of getting all the documents sent over, seeing if we're accepted. Grant doesn't start till January, but we can start working on the RFP. That would be something that we could just do internally as staff. How about if I just emailed it out?
Sure.
And we do some email communication. Eventually, we'd love to have our other two members as they're able join us, and we'd have the full group. So maybe January would be the next meeting where we could try to get everyone here after the busy holiday season. By then also we should have maybe a little bit more answers related to, is there some money for the museum? What's the timeline with that? Things
Well,
about the roofing and so forth. So
kind of these last 2 months, we met second Thursday of the month. So I would suggest we look towards January as second Thursday.
is Thursday's work okay for you guys?
That's great.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll look towards that. We'll send out an invitation.
Okay. The 14th. Okay.
Okay. Okay, I guess that we're still adjourned.
Okay. Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
And Alina, thank you for coming
Hey,
down.
I'm happy,
Appreciate you.
happy to count this as work time, so I can get off.